Hello, my name is Sarah Wells. I am a graduate student in the Master's of Training and Development program at North Carolina State University. Today I am going to be talking to you about my interview with an instructional designer named David Stewart for the EAC 580 class. David has actually been working for Starbucks for 18 years this year. While attending Fresno State University for his bachelor's degree in history, he began working as a barista at Starbucks, quickly working up to the role of shift supervisor, where he remained throughout his undergraduate career. Upon completion of his degree, David decided to pursue a management role in Starbucks and became an assistant store manager, with the plan of becoming a store manager shortly thereafter. In an unfortunate stream of events, the 2008 market crash happened, and he had to choose whether he would take a store manager role an hour and a half away, or whether he would take an opportunity elsewhere. So one of the regulars at his store was a professor at Fresno Pacific University, and convinced David that this was the time to go back to school to get his master's degree. He chose this route, demoting himself back to a barista so that he could remain working at Starbucks and maintain his benefits, while attending Fresno Pacific University working towards his master's degree in ancient history and classics. Once he completed his graduate degree, he became an adjunct professor for a year before deciding he didn't want to go into academia, again focusing his career on Starbucks. David then sold some of his Starbucks stock, packed up, and moved to Seattle with the goal of eventually making connections and getting a job at the Starbucks corporate headquarters. He transferred up to Seattle as a barista and contacted his new district manager for advice on how to get a role in the corporate office. His district manager advised him to move back into the management side, where he would then get more opportunities and make those connections he needed. He moved up to the role of store manager rather quickly in Seattle and remained in that role for 4 years while he worked on making the right connections. Eventually, one of his connections contacted him about a senior learning specialist role that had opened up that he thought David should apply for. David got the job at corporate about 3 years ago and is now an instructional program designer, his dream role, and mine. Why did I choose David? So when looking for my interviewee, I searched on LinkedIn for instructional designers at Starbucks, which is where I currently work, and my eye immediately was drawn to David. I chose to interview him because, like I hope to do, he started as a barista and worked his way up until he got to corporate, eventually becoming an instructional program designer. My dream job as well. Once I saw his experiences, I sent him a message on LinkedIn and we arranged an interview that upcoming week. I was very interested to know in my interview what experiences he had learned the most from along the way and any advice he had for someone hoping to become an instructional designer for Starbucks. On David's instructional design team at Starbucks Coffee Company, they loosely follow the ADDIE model but have moved more towards an agile approach. Following a more agile model of instructional design, David's team batches their content into chunks, which they then analyze, design, develop, conduct subject matter expert reviews, and add to the learning content management system. For example, they may still be in the analysis phase of ADDIE in one chunk while they are working on design for another. These pieces are all layered on top of each other in a more iterative fashion, as opposed to ADDIE's typical waterfall approach. David feels that instructional design is changing, moving away from the traditional ADDIE model towards agile, although ADDIE can be flexible and integrated into this more iterative approach. David has also seen how training is moving away from bigger projects towards creating more micro-learnings and how technology can be integrated to make trainings more engaging. One of the biggest challenges David has faced in designing instruction is the limited amount of time dedicated to these trainings in stores, meaning he has to crunch as much information as he can to the training while reducing the amount of time it takes to complete. For the current Barista Basics training, In particular, there is so much that baristas are responsible for doing, and only so much time given to train them. It seems nearly impossible for the training to be truly effective when it is this overwhelming. David has been working with his leadership team and is trying to get some more time invested for this training and for other roles as well, such as shift supervisor and assistant store manager. He is hoping that more time devoted to training will reduce turnover for baristas. As David's team begins a new project, they perform several types of analysis to ensure their instructional design is relevant and effective. They perform a content analysis to ensure the content is still relevant if they are updating a training program, such as Barista Basics, they are currently working on, and that the photos and videos within the trainings are current as well. They want to be sure that the objectives also line up with what they want to achieve in the training, so they also perform a learner analysis as well to determine the education levels and learning styles of their target audience, and make sure that the training is suitable for that audience. David feels that analysis is the most important part of the instructional design process, as it is so important to make sure the right changes are being made at the right time, and that the project team knows where they want and need to be going with a project. The instructional design team also analyzes the feedback they have received from those who have completed the training prior to the update in order to figure out what needs to be adjusted on the design side of things. As most Starbucks training was conducted online prior to COVID-19, David and his team didn't really have to adapt many of their practices, although as new safety practices and protocols were needing to be put in place at the beginning of the pandemic, new training materials were needed, and they were needed quickly. David and his team had a lot more work to do than they had anticipated and needed to work on a much more rapid timeline. They were also figuring out how to best get this work done remotely, which David said has ultimately improved his instructional design process and how they function as a team. They have had to become much more diligent in how they communicate with each other and their subject matter experts. His biggest challenge caused by the disruption from the pandemic was getting the media he needed for his trainings. With many stores being closed or only allowing a limited capacity and social distancing efforts put in place, it has been difficult for him to get the pictures and videos he needs, but hopefully that should dissipate soon as people are getting vaccinated and the stores are reopening. The COVID-19 pandemic has certainly accelerated this change to remote learning, which Starbucks has already been doing and will continue to do. Working with subject matter experts has been full of highs and lows for David. In his 3 years of working on the learning team, he has had issues getting subject matter experts to get back to him, but has also had wonderful experiences collaborating and creating with his subject matter experts as well. Early on in his career as an instructional program designer at Starbucks, he was asked to develop a training for camesas, or servers, at the Princi bakeries in several Starbucks Reserve store locations, something he knew absolutely nothing about. When he could not get his content subject matter experts to respond to him, despite trying to get some of his higher-ups involved, he developed a training program with very little content. He very much regrets this decision. He wishes he had pushed back against his leadership to get what he needed and not develop the training until he got his content. This was a big learning experience for him, as he did learn to push back more when he was not comfortable or confident in something, and he could engage his leadership to assist him in getting what he needs from his subject matter experts. Another thing he found challenging when working with subject matter experts was taking a step back and accepting that being in the stores and knowing everything there is to know about store operations was not his role anymore. At times, he felt he knew better than his subject matter experts, so he had to learn how to go about challenging them and their knowledge without belittling them. He had to find a balance. Of course, he did not want information that was not entirely accurate to work its way into the training program, but he also needed to trust his subject matter experts. Finding that balance has been a journey. Throughout this journey, David has also had some amazing moments of thought partnership and collaboration with his subject matter experts, which has made his job very fun and rewarding. He has learned that the more open he is, the more open his subject matter experts are, and that both parties are able to learn and better themselves in the process, something he is very passionate about. When asked how his experiences in Starbucks retail stores helped him in his current role as an instructional designer, David did not even flinch before answering, a ton. He noted how his experience in the retail stores basically made him one of his own subject matter experts, which helped him in his interactions with the actual content subject matter experts for some of the trainings he has worked on. He also brought up how Starbucks partners kind of speak their own language, mentioning the term partner, third place, PPK, which is our promotional trainings, the ops field guide, and more. It does tend to take those hired externally a while to fully understand these terms and the culture of Starbucks, which is incredibly collaborative and inclusive, something I love about it too. David has found his experiences in the stores to be most helpful when actually designing and developing his trainings. He imagines how he would teach himself something, and being able to think about the content from this perspective has been incredibly helpful for him. From my interview with David, I had several key takeaways. First, that the project management role is a big one in the field of instructional design. Second, I realized how time-consuming analysis can actually be. For his current project, which should take about 8 months total, the redesign of the Barista Basics program, David is spending actually about 3 of those months in the analysis phase. And this is for an update. That really put it into perspective for me. Finally, I took away how quickly things are changing and how those play out in the real world. Whether working remotely, moving more towards micro-learnings, or integrating new technologies, things are rapidly changing and we must keep current. This interview really helped me gain a better sense of how collaborative instructional design is and how flexible ADDIE can be. I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to interview David and look forward to keeping in touch with him, hopefully working virtually by his side someday soon. Thank you.